In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Christos voskras. A woman noticed her husband standing on the bathroom scale, sucking in his stomach. "Ah, that's not going to help," she said. "Sure it does," he said. "It's the only way I can see the numbers." I suppose we all have our challenges to face. As children, if you can remember, we were either too short or too fat, or too tall or too skinny. Someone else was always smarter or faster or more popular. And as adults, we were either too young or old, too inexperienced or too overqualified, too busy, too alone. And sometimes it's more serious. We carry the baggage of being abused in some unfair way. We might worry about how to pay the bills. We grieve over a loss of someone else, someone close to us. We agonize over a rebellious child, or we face an uncertain future of chronic physical problems. We all experience disappointments and failures which are often beyond our own control. Who among us, for example, has not been frustrated, impatient, angry, or anxious about the impact of COVID-19 on our lives and on our society and our world? Whatever challenges we carry, though, they seem rather insignificant compared to the man in today's gospel. We're told he had been sick for 38 years, a lifetime of not being able to do things most of us take for granted. The Greek word that describes him as a paralytic literally means dried out. Not only is he dried out in body, his spirit has dried out as well. It really isn't too hard to understand how his spirit would become defeated. And I suspect he had pretty much given up on getting well after 38 years. I think his response to Jesus' question, "Do you want to be made well?" reveals his doubt and frustration. Because the first thing he says is, "I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. Someone always gets there ahead of me." In a very real way, the paralytic speaks for everybody elbowed to the sidelines of life, relegated to the margins of society, forced to get by on everyone else's leftovers. Leftover money given to charity, leftover time devoted to volunteering, leftover attention devoted to policy decisions about how things will go for the less fortunate. And this ancient man is speaking for the sick, broken, and marginalized of every kind, especially those who have been down for so long that they no longer really believe in significant help of any kind. Father Larry Condra, who is the director of the Welcome Home, which serves the poor and abandoned in inner city Winnipeg, he wrote about this in the latest newsletter from the Welcome Home. He said this. He said, "Recently, one of our friends from the street commented about the state of emergency declared in Manitoba. He said, 'This is the way I live all the time. I've been jobless for years. I can't travel. Most people avoid me when they see me on the sidewalk. There are always limitations and restrictions. Welcome to the world of the poor.' The view of many in our neighborhood," Father Larry says, "half of the present crisis is formed through the basic needs of life or lack thereof. Sheila Block, senior economist at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, suggests that in the current reality, the greatest harm is likely to those people who are most marginalized and have the least resources." And he continues, "Among the folks in our community gathered around the Welcome Home, 95% do not have credit cards, 60% do not have the internet, and 25% don't have a phone 100% of the time. Self-isolating self-isolating in a small house with 7 other people and 1 bathroom isn't a consideration. Being poor is a full-time job, especially if you are a single parent or grandmother raising children. Being poor is a full-time job. You have no car, you search for the cheapest deals to stretch your loonies, and you pull your hair out trying to homeschool without internet and keep the kids busy indoors in the springtime. And if someone in the household is into an addiction, Lord have mercy. While COVID-19 has no respect for borders, it is not a democratic disease. Inequalities in housing and income make a huge difference. To be sure, this COVID moment is revealing systemic injustices that have long been a part of what was normal. So when we speak of going back to normal, we need to keep that in context. I think, brothers and sisters, this is something for us to reflect on today. Do we really want life to get back to normal? For the paralytic, it was, as soon as the water bubbles, I will get off my mat. As soon as I get to the water, my life will be better. As soon as I get into the water, my problems will be fixed. Sadly, that pool of Bethesda is an illusion. It convinces us that our life is nothing more than our circumstances. It deceives us into believing that life is to be found outside of ourselves. It tricks us into living and as soon as life. Most of us know what that's like. We say to ourselves, or maybe even out loud to one another, as soon as this or that happens, everything will be better. I'll be happy. My problems will go away. I'll be satisfied. All will be well. And yet, that pool of Bethesda has a strong attraction for us. Children often say, as soon as I get big, grow up, or am an adult. This mantra continues throughout our life. As soon as I get married or get out of this relationship, then I'm going to change. As soon as I have more time, more money, or better house. As soon as he changes the way he acts, then our relationship will be better. As soon as she apologizes, as soon as I feel better or get through this time in my life, as soon as I get over this grief and no longer feel sad, as soon as I lose 10 pounds and get in shape, as soon as this pandemic is over, as soon as, you can fill in the blank with almost anything. The problem is there will always be another pool of Bethesda. And meanwhile, life gets put on hold. The pause button pushed. We sit on our mat, self-imprisoned by the circumstances of our life. And this imprisonment is so great that when Jesus asks the man, do you want to be made well? He doesn't even say yes. Instead, he offers his circumstances and his excuses. I'm not suggesting that the circumstances of our lives are irrelevant or have no effect. That's just not true. They do affect us. We are, however, more than the circumstances of our life. Life is not to be found outside our various situations or circumstances, but within them. To believe something other than this is to live constantly looking for the next pool of Bethesda. Notice that Jesus doesn't help the man get into the water. He comes to him on his mat, the same mat and situation the man so wants to escape, and he speaks those words of life and resurrection. Get up off your mat. Or to quote him more accurately, stand up, take your mat, and walk. The man doesn't leave his mat behind. It goes with him. His circumstances are real. The difference is he now carries them. They no longer carry him. Brothers and sisters, Jesus doesn't change our outer circumstances. Remember, he always changes us. He calls us into a new way of being and seeing and speaking and thinking and acting. When we stand and rise to that new life, we discover the circumstances have somehow changed. That That doesn't necessarily make life easy or mean we no longer have to deal with those circumstances. It makes our circumstances, though, more manageable, and we engage them from a different place and position. The pool of Bethesda, then, is drained of its power over us. There's freedom where there was once imprisonment. Inertia gives way to creativity, and those once stagnant waters bubble with new life, the new life of resurrection. Christos Voskras.